This week on Africa Weekly. We return to South Africa, where weeks of xenophobic violence have left several dead and thousands displaced. Then we'll head to Ghana to see how generating electricity there has become child's play. And we'll sample some Congolese cuisine as we trace the footsteps of Kinshasa's innovative gourmet chef. But first, a summary of the stories that made the headlines this week. EU leaders have decided to triple funding for their search and rescue operation in the Mediterranean after an overloaded migrant boat sank off the coast of Libya on Sunday, leaving more than 750 people dead. They, however, failed to agree on concrete action over the sensitive issue of what to do with the migrants once they land on European shores. Ethiopians were left horrified after a video released on Sunday showed the murder of a group of 28 Ethiopian Christians by Islamic State militants in Libya. Tens of thousands of protesters marched in Addis Ababa in a government-organized rally aimed at channeling public anger over the killings that has sparked global condemnation. In Guinea, demonstrators took to the streets of the capital, Conakry, to protest against a disputed election timetable that the opposition claim will give the ruling party an unfair advantage. Violence between police and opposition supporters have left several dead in the last 2 weeks, but the president ruled out any review of the October presidential vote. Voters go to the polls in Togo this weekend, with President Faure Gnassingbé seeking a third term of office. Concerns about possible electoral fraud persist after massive vote rigging 5 years ago and in 2005, which also saw up to 500 people killed in political violence. And in Sierra Leone, the reopening of a chimpanzee reserve is another signal that the Ebola threat is gradually beginning to recede. The outbreak has claimed the lives of thousands of people and animals across Africa, including 5,000 chimpanzees in Sierra Leone. In South Africa, the government deployed the army to keep the peace in a series of government initiatives aimed at quelling weeks of violence against foreigners.
A hastily erected camp for displaced people on the outskirts of Johannesburg. 400 people, mainly from Mozambique, Malawi and Zimbabwe, are sheltered here, all fleeing the recent flare-up in xenophobic violence that has swept South Africa. The fear of attack has sent a ripple of panic through much of South Africa's 5 million strong immigrant population.
They say that they received an SMS. There was an SMS that was going around to say that they were going to be attacked. So in fear of being attacked, they actually decided to come to the police station. So we had to put systems in place to ensure that they are safe.
They are talking to us that go back where from, go back to your country, go back to your country, we will attack you at the night, we will attack you at the night.
Rumours, threats by SMS and social media have been adding to the panic, and a tension that has spilled, like here in central Johannesburg, into running street fighting. Many shops closed for days here, their foreign owners fearing attacks and looting. In 2008, more than 60 people died in xenophobic violence, mainly in Johannesburg's townships. This time, the death toll is much lower, but more than 300 people have been arrested and the army has been deployed to hotspots.
We come in as the ultimate option. What are we going to do now? We're going to be deploying. We're going to deploy because we know in the first instance that the presence of the South African National Defence Force will serve as a deterrent.
Hundreds of South Africa's immigrants have already left, like these Malawians arriving in Blantyre by bus. At night, in some places, some unemployed South Africans have been burning buildings and cars and looting shops. With unemployment around 25% in South Africa, soaring to over 50% among young people, workers from Asia or from other African countries often become the target of resentment and frustration.
We complain because other people from the hostel are not working. Even me, I'm not working. But now I'm trying to tell this guy to go back home.
The king of South Africa's Zulus, accused of having fomented the hatred with a speech blaming immigrants for rising crime, has since called for calm. Marches and candlelit vigils have also sought to calm tensions in South Africa, but the threat of further attacks is far from extinguished.
Producing electricity can be as simple as child's play. At this school on Ghana's Volta River, children's efforts in the playground are turned into energy. The play equipment has turbines that powers a battery in the classroom. The battery recharges lamps that the children then take home, giving them light to do their homework by.
As you have seen the children turning round on the merry-go-round, there is a battery inside the room which charges the system over there, so that when the children after school, they send the lighting back home, and then after the lighting is going off, they come for recharge. So it is helping the students to learn.
George Thompson, a project manager for the charity Empower Playgrounds, travels to the most remote parts of the country to equip schools with these adapted playground rides. 42 schools across the country are already taking part in the scheme. A separate project sees locals pay around $150 for a battery that's recharged by solar energy, allowing them to have light in their homes and plug in electrical equipment.
Our objective is not to make any money from or profit from this, but we need to get the center sustainable, or the project sustainable. So we ask them to pay 500 Ghana cedis to be hooked up to the system, and then each time they bring the battery for recharge, they pay 5 cedis for that.
Electricity is a state-run utility in Ghana, but power cuts are frequent and can last up to 24 hours. The disruption to businesses saw Ghanaians take to the street last month in protest.
Apart from the industry, there is no social life. There is no nightlife in Ghana, because we go under the period of 12 hours light and then 24 hours without lights. So you can see the effect on the very small manufacturers, small retailers.
Both schemes have reduced the number of locals on the island of Pediatorp from using expensive and polluting fuel and generators. Now they have a more environmentally friendly option, and for the children, a good excuse to play.
Top quality organic vegetables fresh from the farm, destined for this restaurant in Kinshasa. Resource was opened in 2012 by local star chef Christian Yumbi. Offering high-end Congolese cuisine with a modern twist, Yumbi is a one-off in a restaurant scene dominated by expats. But his journey wasn't a straightforward one. After graduating in administration from the Free University of Brussels, he ended up working in kitchens almost by chance.
At the time, it was hard to find work as a foreigner in Belgium. It was almost impossible. All my Belgian and white friends with whom I completed my studies found work, and I was struggling to find work. And that's why, as I had a bit of experience in the kitchen, I reorientated myself, because there was a real demand for kitchen staff.
Despite then gaining a master's degree from the prestigious Ritz Escoffier Cookery School in Paris, none of his Belgian employers would appoint him head chef. So he took out a loan and opened his own restaurant in 2004. But hit hard by the financial crisis and lamenting what he saw as latent racism, he returned to Congo. After opening his restaurant in Kinshasa, he then went on to win Pan-African TV contest Star Chef, finally bringing his twist on Congolese cuisine to the top table. Yumbi has set up a training school, and every year the best student is hired to work in his restaurant. Getting here may have been a slow burn, but he says he feels more fulfilled and free in Congo than anywhere else.
A boat regatta in Nigeria featuring beautifully adorned boats and yachts crossed Lagos Lagoon at the weekend with the theme celebrating the aquatic splendor of Lagos. Next week we will go to Somalia, where the banana industry is bouncing back after 2 decades of conflict decimated the country's economy. And we will visit Abidjan Zoo, where the arrival of 3 new lions marks a turning point for Ivory Coast that has struggled to recover after civil war broke out in 2010. That's all from us at Africa Weekly. Until next week.